Crybaby wants to join. Okay, I need headphones for that. He got converted, and he's going to come join us. Yes, go ahead. Hello. Yes,
Hi,
sir.
Ken. Can you hear me?
Yes, fine.
Hey, regarding experiments in stratification, I watched the video, and there were several things I found that were in error. One of those is in his flume experiments that he did in Colorado, he only used sand. And, someplace like the Grand Canyon, we have various facies from limestone to shale to sandstone. His model did not account for limestone, which is formed by carbonate precipitating out of the water column onto the ocean floor. He did not replicate that in his flume experiment.
Okay, is that the only way limestone can be formed? Are you certain?
Well, I mean, you have cave deposits, and that's, a terrestrial formation of carbonate. But yes,
Right.
but it's formed in quiet environments through the precipitation through the seawater down to form lime mud on the ocean floor. So
Right.
that's one thing that was missing in his model.
So
And
let's take
another
that one
thing
at a
is,
time now.
yeah,
Go ahead. One at a time.
Sounds
This
good.
thing forms 15 layers in a matter of minutes. Okay, if you flip it over, let's just let people watch that for those that aren't paying attention anyway. Okay, it'll form multiple layers in minutes. Okay, this is all just sand. Now, is the formation of limestone temperature dependent? If the ocean is warmer or colder, is it more rapid or more precipitation or less?
Well, it forms more in warmer ocean waters.
Right. Okay. So if the Bible story is true,
we see it forming nowadays in the Caribbean.
Oh yeah, limestone is still forming. I agree. So if the Bible story is true and the fountains of the deep broke open, the water inside the crust, under the crust of the earth, which we know from hydrothermal vents all over the ocean, 10 million of them they know about, shooting up hot water into the bottom of the ocean. So if the earth cracked up like an eggshell at the time of the flood, the fountains of the deep would shoot out hot water, which would make limestone and diatomaceous earth like in minutes because of the rapid temperature change.
Yeah, but we have in the Grand Canyon, we have limestone, and then we'll have shale, sandstone, another limestone layer, and of course, these are all forming over millions to tens of millions of years.
Right. But in your religion,
well,
in your religion,
they can't be explained by the flood model. I mean, you explain maybe how one layer of limestone could form. And I would even question that, but you cannot explain the multiple layers of limestone that are in the Grand Canyon. And one thing, let me add one thing that his video failed to provide was radiometric dating. He completely ignored radiometric dating. He just used very short temporal spans for his flume experiments, which might account for the formation of, some layers that are graded from coarse to fine, but it didn't account for regressions and transgressions of the ocean over a long time.
Let's catch the audience up. What he's talking about, there's a video that's been out for many years called Experiments in Stratification, done at Colorado State University, I think, where they poured different densities of sand into moving water. And instead of forming the layers this way, like the evolution theory teaches with their geologic column, the layers form horizontally. Now, it was all just different colors of sand, but would you agree that the layers form downstream 8 or 10 or 12 layers at a time? They're not forming this way, even though it's all sand. So would you agree, all that he showed, the layers form horizontally, not vertically?
It was both. It was both. And he even admitted it was vertical and lateral deposition.
Because you got 8 or 10 layers forming this way, a fossil can be deposited here that is actually younger than a fossil up here. They could be, at least in the sandstone, they could be, the order, it's not necessarily the law of superposition, like what's his name made up, okay? So then if you go to ICR.org, Institute for Ocean Research, they've got a couple geologists there, Steve Austin, I forget the other one, that have done lots of research on the Grand Canyon. Would you agree that the Grand Canyon contains probably 8 or 10 different layers of limestone?
That sounds right. Yeah, multiple layers of limestone.
How do you tell the difference between Jurassic limestone and Cretaceous limestone? How do you tell the difference?
Because you have volcanic elements in between those layers that are dated. And so you have a bracket of ages for those layers of limestone.
So if there were no layers of tuff or ash or magma or volcanic or igneous rock, there are many areas around the world that have multiple layers of limestone interspersed with sandstone or something else with no volcanic activity. So how do you tell if something is Cretaceous limestone or Jurassic limestone?
Well, you would do it by index fossils in that case.
Bingo.
So you would know the age in one particular location because you've dated the volcanic layers that are on either side of it. And since that fossil only occurs in certain layers because it's gone extinct, and so it only occurs during a certain time period, if you find that in another layer somewhere else, you can be certain that that age of that fossil or the age of that layer is going to be a similar age to the original layer, if that makes sense.
Well, it's obvious you've drunk the Kool-Aid and you really honestly believe what you've been taught
Well,
about all this.
I've studied this in the field. I mean, I've studied field geology. I was in the field studying geology.
I was out in the field all day today giving tours of our place. We got layers all over here. We love it.
You have what?
We give video. How many took the tours today in the Jeep? Anybody take the tours? Got a bunch of visitors here tonight. We took the real tour, not the grandma tour, right?
I took the real tour, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I knew you would say the way you tell the age of it is by the index fossils, and then if it is bracketed between two igneous rock layers, that the obvious flaws or drawbacks or assumptions with any dating method. Has it always been the same content? Has there been any contamination? Has the decay rate remained same? We cover that in video 7 in great detail. I think it's real obvious to folks that aren't brainwashed.
Well, radiometric dating is rooted in the radioactive decay law, which is a law of physics. Nuclear decay's constant doesn't vary in any meaningful ways in nature.
There are things that can affect the rate of decay. I'll show you. Video number 7. 80% of potassium in a small sample of iron meteorite can be removed by distilled water in 4.5 hours. Well, so the contamination probability is really high. International interpretation.
Yeah, but we're talking about the percentage of daughter product compared with parent product.
True, you have to know what the parent product was when it died or when it was laid down. You can't know that. That's why I say if the Earth had a crystal canopy over the top, like the Bible teaches it did, the formation of carbon-14 would be almost nil because the couple inches of ice would block out most of the UV light, which is what makes the nitrogen turn to carbon-14. And so the animals and plants growing in that environment before the flood would have almost no C14. We dig them up today and rate them by today's atmospheric content, 0.0000765%, which is not the number they had when they were living. So of course you're going to get a big number, but it's meaningless. Because you don't.
Yeah, I'm sorry. You said that, with the experiments in stratification, Flume experiment that he did, that you may get fossils that are younger below fossils that are older because of the way the deposition is. But, in the Grand Canyon, let me just finish. In the Grand Canyon, we see at the base of the Grand Canyon, we find single-celled organisms fossilized, and which get more complex as you go up the geologic column until you have fish at the top, or in the layers approaching the Permian age.
Well, the KBS tuff named for K. Brensenmeyer, they use potassium argon dating to date the layers because it is volcanic, like you talked about, igneous rock. And it was dated at 212 to 230 million years. Nature magazine, 1970. That was the date given to it. Can you blow that up, brother? You're trying. Look at that. Okay. I'm glad we got you over there, Joseph.
So was it new material? Is that what you're saying, Kent?
No, I'm saying this was dated by potassium argon dating, which is how they typically do volcanic rock like you're talking about. Okay?
Right.
Then in 1972, 2 years later, Richard Leakey found a human skull under the KBS tuff. Well, wait a minute. if that KBS layer is 212 million years old, you can't have a human skull there. That was dated at 2.9 million years. Wait a minute.
Sure,
If
I will
the
have to
skull,
look at that in particular, and we'll talk
skull,
about it some other time.
right? You've got a human skull under this volcanic layer. The volcanic layer was dated at 212 million years old, but the skull under it is dated at 2.9 million years old.
I mean, you understand that when there can be errors in sampling in which you're sampling actually parent rock that was blown in with the new material, and so you're dating old material even though it's coming into a new layer, because volcanism is a violent process, and so old rocks get mixed in with like new ash and that kind of thing, and if you're not careful with the sampling, you'll get erroneous dates because of sampling errors.
That's my whole point. They took 10 samples of the KBS tuff and dated it.
Who took those samples?
The article it's found in the book Bones of Contention by Marvin Lubenow. He's got the documentation in the book. I forgot to put it on the slide here. But the fact that they had to resample it, the reason they resampled it is because they found a human skull underneath. They said, well, we must have done something wrong. Had they not found that skull, they never would have gone back and checked. It'd be in all the textbooks that the KBS tuff is 212 million years old because we dated it with potassium argon dating. Nobody would think, wow, there might be a mistake. They find a human skull underneath and said, oops, something's wrong here. Humans didn't live back then. So they take 10 more samples and date it. Now they got dates from 0.5 to 2.6 million. Well, notice that is a 500% error just in their 10 samples.
I'll have to
and
look
none
at
of them
that.
matched.
I'll have to
and
look
none
at
of them
that
matched 200 million.
information. Who took the samples, which lab they took the samples to. I mean, all these things can play a role in getting erroneous dates, but there are very few dates that stick out like that in all the thousands and thousands of dates that they've gotten throughout the world. Very few stand out like that as not matching the layer and the biota that was in that layer.
Okay, well, I know you want to date the layers by the fossils and the fossils by the layers. We've covered that circular reasoning. But do some research on the KBS tuff.
I will, and we'll talk about it again.
Thank you. So many different numbers. Sure. Okay, thank you.
I appreciate it.
Questions?
Thank you, Kent.
Right,
bye, Joseph.
Goodbye.